Hey there, folks. This is Screen Watching. Get your freak on, folks. We are talking movies and TV shows. It's what we do here on this show. What are we discussing? Good question. The rundown tells me we're going to discuss the new horror film from the fella that did Barbarian, which I'm going to tell you my adorable Barbarian story later in the podcast. But before we can get to that, I can tell you that his new film is called Weapons. It's playing in cinemas right now. As is my way, I look at the small screen. I'm going to take a gander at a brand new TV show. It is season 14 of King of the Hill. It's actually a new show, but it's an old show. Look, it's an interesting one. So I'm going to talk about what's going on there. What else have we been watching? Mouthful to get out, and it's going to be a mouthful to tell you that Simon also got along to the movies this week to see Freakier Friday, which brings back, and you know what? Freakier Friday is kind of the movie equivalent of what they're doing with King of the Hill. But we'll find the, crossovers there. He also took a look at Wednesday on Netflix. Big move. Oh, I'm just going to look at the biggest TV show streaming on the thing. And like, come on, Simon, just try a bit harder. I'm doing a bit of a deep dive. I've found a movie which you can't find here in Australia, but I believe it's played some festivals maybe or something. I know Simon's seen this one because I checked out his letterbox the other day, but I checked out Freaky Tales, which is a film that debuted in the last couple of days on US HBO Max. Not here in Australia, a bit frustrating, and we'll get into that one. Also, and apropos of nothing really, I just started watching Strange New Worlds, the Star Trek TV series, and I've been having a goddamn great time with it. Folks, we're going to talk about all that, probably a little bit more, hopefully a bit less, on Screen Watching. Here's the opening titles.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher! Mother!
Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
Alright, Simon, it's not the time for the review. I just want to hear like a thumb up or a thumb down. Only one, singular. You have seen the new Naked Gun movie, which debuts in cinemas next week in Australia. It's already debuted internationally, so like freaking whatever. But thumb up, thumb down.
All right.
No, Simon.
No.
Two words. Thumb up, thumb down.
Thumb up.
Okay.
Thumb up with an asterisk.
Okay. We'll discuss the asterisks next week on the show.
We'll do it next week. In fact, I think it's 2 weeks. It might be August 21st. It's a very early lead-in screening we had for this one. Probably in line with the US release and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, the screening was after it was released in the US.
I know, it's very odd. I don't know what they're doing. It's all over the place with that one. It was a very low-key screening as well. It was meant to be kind of wacky and zany, but it didn't quite pay off. But I'm well, Dan Barrett. Thanks for asking. Hello, screen watchers everywhere.
Didn't ask, not interested.
We have a very packed show with a lot of very diverse and interesting titles to discuss. I don't think we should banter around anymore. Let's get straight into it.
I like the word diverse, where, certainly maybe diverse in genres, but certainly there are white people across the board here, from what I can see.
White people throughout all of this, I know.
It's fine. We double down. We podcast about what we know about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah. All right, Simon, I want to hear a little bit about Weapons, which is the new film from the director of Barbarian, whose name I don't remember. But
I can tell.
We'll watch the clip, and we're going to come back in a moment, and we're going to talk about my experience of watching Barbarians.
Every other class had all their kids. But Mrs. Gandy's room was totally empty. And do you know why? Because the night before, at 2:17 in the morning, every kid woke up, got out of bed, walked downstairs, and into the dark. And they never came back.
Simon's been banging on at me to watch, Simon's been banging on at...
Nice try.
Simon's been banging on at me to watch Weapons, and I'm going to. I just haven't had an opportunity yet. But the thing that's got me is that it's from the guy that made Barbarians, whose name is...
Zach Cregger's.
Zach Cregger's. How could you forget Cregger's? Old mate Cregger's.
That's your name.
Very much so. I saw Barbarians, as I'm sure Mr. Cregger's intended, which was to be watched streaming on Hulu or Disney Plus or wherever it was.
He makes very cinematic films, but do go on.
I watched it as he intended, but I also watched it as he intended at 12 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, because there was this great period I had in my life for a couple of months where I have a little person in my life, I'd put her down for a nap, and I could sit down and watch a full movie from her going down for a nap to her waking up from the nap. It was like a perfect window, and so every Saturday I got to watch a movie in the middle of the day. I can't do that at the moment. I've literally just been out there setting up play school and all sorts of stuff for her. She's up for the next 14 hours. But I missed out on the opportunity. So I got to watch Barbarians the way that Craig has intended, which was sitting on a bed with a lot of daylight around and an infant snoring at my feet, hoping that she wasn't going to wake up and be scarred forever by whatever horrible thing was going to be displayed on the screen at any given moment.
That's going to happen anyway, living in your household. I've been there. And I should point out that the that will come full circle at some point when you sit down to watch a movie at 12 in the afternoon and you'll start having a nap like I do. I have figured out over the last several months that I cannot put a movie on after about 1 o'clock because I'll just nod off in front of it. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I should say. The thought of when I used to stay up until 1 in the morning and put a movie on just seems like a whole other person entirely. So I do understand your time management issues there and getting to watch the movies you want to watch when you want to watch it and the burden that child is on your life. Now, let's discuss Zach Cregger's new film, Weapons. We've played the clip. Good. This is getting a lot of buzz, and rightly so. Cregger's has a very... it's a very cinematic style, and I wrote a review during the week where I called his skillful narrative structuring, which he does quite brilliantly in Weapons, as being very reminiscent of peak Shyamalan, even some of the best work of one of the greats, Brian De Palma. He has a way of taking his narrative, sometimes us critics get all snooty and we use the word that it's a Rashomon sort of film, which is the same narrative from different perspectives. And he kind of does that with Weapons. It's the story of how one night at 2:17 in the morning, 17 children leap up out of their beds and run into the suburban night. And what we find over the next 100-odd minutes is how this has impacted 5 or 6 different key people to the narrative and how all those people come together in the final act of this story. It's impossible to review this film and offer up any plot points because any small beat will give away exactly what happens. Suffice to say, there are some truly shocking moments. At one point in the film, when he's telling a couple of different character stories, he literally drops the horror film pretense and it becomes this sort of the story of the cop and the drug addict, and it just takes you right out of the horror story and the missing kid story of the film until the moment that it doesn't. And there was an audible gasp in the audience when there was a reveal that's central to the plot. I'm stumbling and stuttering around this review. Clearly, I love the film. And I loved it because it looks great on the big screen. It's got a series of really committed performances by people like Julia Garner and Josh Brolin and Alden Ehrenreich, and the whole world will be talking about Amy Madigan's performance in a couple of weeks. But it is crucial not to give away any of the plot points that may spoil anyone's enjoyment of this film. So, look, get along to see it on as big a screen as possible. Be wary that it has some bloody moments, but it's the kind of cleverly used gore that seems to be sort of acceptable in a mainstream film like this one, and I think it works well. So I'm a big fan of Weapons.
Okay, Simon, I'm going to move on and start talking about King of the Hill. 2 things just on what you said then. I had the movie spoiled for me a little bit by a blurb which referred to whatever happens in Weapons, which I don't know what it is, but they refer to it as a Magnolia-style twist. And I don't know how appropriate that is, but I'm kind of curious.
Only in the structure of it, only in the fact that it's sort of...
Already I know too much.
All right.
That's fine. Okay. And the other thing, you referred to some movie called Rashomon in your review. I try not to think about that movie too much. I always like to refer to the structure of those movies as being akin to Wrath of Man, the Jason Statham film from a few years ago.
Terrific film, and owes a lot to... Rashomon owes a lot to Wrath of Man.
Yeah, very much so. Anyway, King of the Hill clip.
Man, look at
at that Return of the Dang Old King, man. Oh, wow. I'm getting a hug, okay? Emotional.
It's been hard with you and Peggy gone, Hank. I might have let myself go a little.
World has changed, Dad.
I don't know how to kick someone's ass over Zoom, but I'll figure it out. Huh. Okay. Is that a...
Don't worry. They're both all gender.
Uh-huh. Are we all gender?
Okay, Simon, King of the Hill animated show kicked off in 1997, ran for 13 seasons. Season 13, they kicked into widescreen. That speaks to just how old this TV program is. Now, Simon, quick question. King of the Hill, have you ever watched much of it?
Maybe half a dozen episodes in the early going. No, never connected with it.
Look, I'd say I probably watched about the same number of episodes. It was a show that I always liked the spirit of, but I never really found myself watching it on the regular. So I'd say I've maybe watched the first episode like 4 or 5 times with the intention that I'm going to get through this series.
Did The Simpsons spoil this sort of family animated comedy for us? Because I was always a Simpsons snob, and I always thought that Family Guy and King of the Hill wouldn't have existed had The Simpsons not paved the way, which is probably true.
They wouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
and which wouldn't, and which doesn't, impinge upon the quality of those two shows, whatever that may be. But I always sort of thought, I've got my animated family locked away, so that's maybe why I didn't sort of lean into these two.
Well, around like 97, 98-ish is where The Simpsons started going downhill. So it was probably time for me to jump onto a different animated family. I was kind of into the idea of King of the Hill only because, yes, it's animated, but they didn't really use the animation to a point where, like, it's not a wacky family. There's no, like, bending reality in this at all. Like, it really is something which could just as easily be live action as it is animation.
True.
And even to the point where, look, I mean, if you're actually into animation, you can say that, there's things you can do in animation that you just can't do, like, with people in terms of expressions, in terms of creating a sense of reality in a, constructed form. But even so, I kind of just feel like King of the Hill, I don't think really ever took advantage of the animated aspect of it all. Now, that said, I've only watched...
Whereas I think King of the Hill was sort of reworked a little bit and became American Dad, which did take advantage of the animation.
I don't think that's... Oh, you're saying that American Dad was kind of like ripping off King of the Hill, is that...
To a certain extent.
Okay.
Or better utilised the animation as a tool.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I'm no fan of American Dad or Family Guy for that matter. No, right. But I do think that both shows take, considerable advantage of that animated aspect. Like, they are very cartoonish in a way that King of the Hill just wasn't. And it was that sort of, realistic part of it that I thought, King of the Hill might be the show for me. I just never really quite found my way into it. So I was kind of curious with the revival series that they've just kicked off. They're calling it season 14, and it's kind of a new TV program, but it's also still continuing the show that was. So King of the Hill, if you're not familiar with it, it's set in Texas. You've got the Hill family, you've got the father Hank, you've got the mother whose name just dropped out of my mind, Peggy, and then you've got Bobby, who's the son. And Bobby is in the in the original version, I think like 10, 11 years old. So, young kid on the cusp of about to enter puberty, but certainly not there. And it's about them, it's about their neighbors, it's about the community around them in Texas. Cut to 2025, the new version of it has Hank and Peggy have returned from a stint of living in Saudi Arabia, which I don't think that was ever set up in the original thing that they were off there. I think it's an entirely new element that's thrown in. They've been living there. Hank has been working there as an expat, doing propane installations over there because he's a propane enthusiast / career-long installer of propane and propane tank-related accessories.
Cool.
But he's been doing that in Saudi Arabia and making a fair bit of money doing it. But the time's right for him and Peg to retire, and so they're coming back to their home of Arlen in Texas. Bobby is now grown up. He's in his early 20s, 21, 22. He is running a Japanese-German fusion restaurant. Yeah. And so his life is pretty much, he's indebted to, and there's some character that I presume was a kid from the original version of the show and is now like his business partner, and he's bringing the money. Bobby's the one that's putting all the work in, and so Bobby's there from dawn till, midnight-ish every night, just trying to make this restaurant work, because he knows that 2 years in, he's going to be able to start taking a lot more of the profits. That's the business arrangement he's entered into. So he's doing this. The parents are finding their way back into Arlen and back into the Texan community. And what I really like about this program from just this reboot structure is that these characters haven't been trapped in amber all this time. Instead, they've actually been living lives. It's not like Hank and Peggy are coming back going, what's with this Me Too culture? But like they respond to elements of the culture as it is and can express their dismissal at, Hank's at the airport in the first episode back. He's having to order his taxi via like an Uber app and is like, I don't see how this is better. And it's little asides like that, which kind of just make it feel like, it's a comment that would actually be made, even though, Hank, I'm sure, has called Uber a whole bunch of times in the past and, sort of dealt with that. It just feels like it's a really contemporary version of King of the Hill, and I kind of just like it more.
Yeah, it strikes me as a huge creative challenge for the people behind, and I'm assuming it's the same people behind the original.
Yeah, absolutely.
To create this entire off-screen backstory for all these people, for the family as they all grow older, and then still be able to tie it back to the essence of the first show. That is a hugely ambitious thing to try to do from a character perspective. So if in your words they pull it off, that's quite a feat.
Yes, I think that they've pulled it off. And as I said, I'm not someone who watched the original series, so I can't really speak to that part of whether it's wholly successful. But as a entertainment, it feels like they've nailed it. People I know who have, watched the original show through, they seem very happy with this revival. So I suspect that it's sort of nailed the landing. But I think that what they've done here is kind of really impressive in that not only are they picking it up from a narrative perspective, but also completely eschews what we know from animated series, which is that, think about The Simpsons, for example. The joke is, Bart Simpson's still the same rascal 12-year-old that he's been since the first episode. Those are characters that really never age or evolve. But we now have, Bobby, who has aged and evolved. He's out there dating people and falling in love and running a business. And, he's a proper evolved human being. He's not the goofy 10-year-old he was. He's now a fairly goofy 21-year-old, but just goofy in different ways. He has grown as a character.
This speaks exactly to what you were saying about how this could be a live action show, and it essentially was. If you look at something like The Connors, which returned to the Roseanne household years later and showed how all these people had grown in the way, this is kind of what King of the Hill's doing.
Yeah, the only difference is this is actually hugely entertaining in a way The Connors just wasn't. Man, that show just, oh my God, I find that a struggle. As someone who loved Roseanne back in the day, and I think that show still holds up really well, but The Connors, oh man. But one thing I just wanted to highlight before we move on is there's a type of TV that exists, and this was very much sort of exemplified by, and right now I'm just struggling to think of the name of the show, which I absolutely adored. Joe Pera Talks With You.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you've mentioned a couple of times.
It's a show that I absolutely adore because it was a show that kind of was about humanity, and it was about sort of getting in touch with your local community and trying to do better by your neighbours, for yourself, and just trying to find opportunities to grow and just be a better person.
You're
and this show
an
kind of does.
Person, aren't you, Dan Barrett? You want to see the best in people and hope that others see it too.
Well, I think people should just try.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make. What an upbeat way to...
But this show kind of does the same thing, and so it's very much about Hank and Peggy. They're a bit dismissive of people, so Bobby in one episode brings home a girlfriend who's a vegan, or as they pronounce it, vegan. So they're trying to sort of, integrate her into, meal planning and stuff, and, Hank's like, I don't know why we need to change when she's the one that's weird. Okay, and that's fine, but at the same time, he's also not going to be completely dismissive of her, and he's going to try to find a place for her at the dinner table to engage with them, and he's going to treat her like a human being, which I think is particularly in a very polarized world that we live in particularly polarized Texas these days. Sure. I think that's a really sort of interesting spirit to approach this series with.
Nice. All right. Where do we find it? Which of the streamers has resurrected King of the Hill?
You can find all 14 seasons now of King of the Hill streaming on Disney+. I've watched all 10 episodes of the Revival series, and I think I'm going back to watch the previous 13 seasons now.
Good Lord.
It's only 250 episodes.
Clearly. Can I just... has it entirely sort of... Has it come back with exactly the same animation style, or is that also changed over the years?
So it does look a bit different. So, I mean, animation technology's improved dramatically in the last... it's just always improved. So in the same way that when you watch like an old Simpsons episode to a modern Simpsons episode, you can see that it's now digitally produced. Like it's definitely, there's a different sort of improved visual quality and standard to it. Yep. Okay, but the things to probably know is that the original series was all in 4:3, with the exception of season 13 where they went widescreen. So we are seeing a very sort of... We're familiar with King of the Hill being a widescreen program, because we've had one season of it previously, but it is still just very different. Like you can tell from an animation standpoint, that it's a very different looking show, and I quite like it.
All right, let's get our freak on. That's a beautiful segue, because I know what we're about to talk in the What Else Have You Been Watching segment. What else have I been watching, Dan? I'm glad you asked. First of all, earlier this week, God, it feels like forever ago, I went to the Sydney premiere of Freakier Friday. Some will say long overdue, others might say the entirely unnecessary sequel to Freaky Friday, the 2003 film which absolutely confirmed Lindasy Lohan as a big screen star and re-energised Jamie Lee Curtis's career with a wonderful comedic turn. It was directed by Mark Waters, who was having a bit of a moment back then. He went on to do Mean Girls. And
what did you do after that, Simon?
I want to say some television.
Go on.
But he was certainly in the middle of a point then when he had a handle on charming, funny, big screen comedies. And Freaky Friday and Mean Girls were certainly those. He is not in any way involved that I could find out with this sequel. It has clearly all the hallmarks of a legacy rehash, as I like to call them. This is a property that Disney clearly saw some value in as content, and it exists for absolutely no other reason than to bolster that side of the business. The film itself doubles down on the body swapping. In this film, there's Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindasy Lohan, but there's also Julia Butters, who you'll recall as the scene-stealing young girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Who whispered into Leo's ear that he's a great actor.
Jodie Foster, not Jodie Foster.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Sophia, I want to say Hammond, maybe, is the other girl. And so there's 4 bodies that are swapped out in this one, soul swapped, I guess you could say. And although it doubles down on the body swapping, it seems to provide about half the comedy that the first one did. It's a clunky film. It's too convoluted. The movie is half an hour old before there's any sort of notion of a body swap happening. And then it tries to make some commentary about single-parent families and sort of Gen Z versus Gen X or Millennial versus Gen X sort of relationships, and none of that works at all. It's a waste of time. They wheel Mark Harmon out for a couple of scenes. He's looking very elderly at this stage, but he's still very charming on screen. Everyone else in this seems to be trying really, really hard, but there isn't a really big belly laugh in the whole film, and that's unfortunate. This is in American summer of a lot of reboots and sequels and rehashes. This is one of the weakest, unfortunately.
So, look, I haven't seen this movie. I've got no intention to see the movie, but I thought I would dig up a Blue Sky message that I sent out a month ago when I was sitting in a cinema and I saw the trailer come on before whatever amazing film I was about to watch.
Sure.
This is my message, and this is exactly where my thoughts are still to this day. Imagine talking to a loved one who then asks you to go see Freakier Friday with them at the movies. You'd have to leave them immediately, right? And I still feel that way.
Yeah, look. Okay. I know exactly how you feel. It's an unnecessary comedy. They're only going to rework or try to rework what happened in the first film, and it never is as good second time around.
You know what? Sorry, Simon. So years ago when this kind of movie used to come out, it'd be a success at the cinema, and then you'd see a sequel 2 or 3 years later.
Yep.
where they, somehow just orchestrate it, that there's another body swap that takes place,
Sure.
and, it's probably the dogs and so on and whatever.
Yep.
Like, there's some sort of thing. Like, that I kind of get, but the idea of bringing them back, how many years has it been? Like 20 years?
22 years.
22 years. Like, why are we bothering? Like, just, if you want to do another Freaky Friday, just reboot it again. It's not like Freaky Friday was original to begin with.
Well, that's the crazy thing. It has been rebooted twice since 2002. They've been two,
Really?
There've been 2 TV movies called Freaky Friday, and so it's a gold mine that you can keep going back to, all the way back to 1976 when Barbara Harris and Jodie Foster played these parts. I think it was all based on like a 1972 novel, if I remember my readings through the week. So there's stuff to be mined here, but you're exactly right. Don't try and do it with Lindsay and Jamie and these hot young stars who may or may not offer something fresh. Just go in with a whole new perspective and make it zing again. This one doesn't zing. The 2002 version, I really enjoyed it. It zung, but this one doesn't zing.
Yeah, I didn't see it because I was a grown-up.
I saw it because I had a 3-year-old daughter at that stage, so I was watching all this sort of stuff. I would have watched it anyway. I like a Disney comedy. So, do you want to go into your freaky moment?
Yeah, so look, there's this movie that I hadn't heard of up until literally about 24 hours ago. It's called Freaky Tales. So this, as I came to learn, was directed by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, co-directors, so, that's unusual. But these two have themselves a little bit of a, cinematic history. They made movies like Half Nelson, Sugar, Mississippi Grind, which is very relevant to this movie. Yep. They did episodes of Mrs. America. What else have they done? Some film called Captain Marvel. I don't know if you
they were
heard
part
of
the
that one.
MCU for a blink.
Yeah. My understanding is that the making of that Captain Marvel movie wasn't necessarily entirely... It didn't allow them to necessarily flex the filmmaking spirit that they wanted to bring
right.
to it.
That's what I understand too.
Yeah. But anyway, so they got this film, and it's called Freaky Tales. So I don't know if this is the first film they've made post-Captain Marvel. Simon, maybe you can speak to that. Wait, I just looked it up. It is. It's the first thing I found.
Was, yeah.
Yeah, so 5 years, and you'd kind of think they'd have like a fair bit of juice to be able to make something which is maybe a little bit sort of bigger budget than what this feels like, which is a pretty low budget movie, but it works for it. So the film to look to very much as what I think is a spiritual inspiration for this is 1994's Pulp Fiction. Not sure if you heard of that film. It was a bit of a big deal back in the day.
I know of it, yeah.
But yeah, there's certainly elements of this from even the way that they frame. There's some scenes that are filmed in a diner that absolutely Pulp Fiction has to be a guidepost that they were using when producing this film. So it's an anthology of sorts with storylines and characters that cross over between stories. It kicks off with, and I won't talk about all of them because it kind of builds towards something which I think is a little bit sort of twisty, but not entirely. So the first story, which runs about 20 odd minutes, is about some young punk rock enthusiasts this is all set in Oakland in 1987. So you got these punk rockers who they're a bit sort of ticked off that Oakland's been taken over by Nazis who are sort of roaming the streets. Skinhead Nazis. Then you've got the next storyline, which is about this pair of African-American rap battlers who get their big shots, get on stage with this guy named Too Short. And so far, we're dealing with, fairly unknown cast members broadly, but enter story 3 when suddenly Pedro Pascal comes into it with a very sort of small role in it from Mr. Thomas Hanks. I think that's his name.
Video store clerk Tom Hanks.
Yeah, he seems like the best video clerk ever. So he's in there, and Pedro Pascal is a mob enforcer type guy who's just about to do one last job, and then things go a little bit pear-shaped for him, and then that sort of leads into something else, and the something else is tied together by the thing that's been happening in the background of all of this, which is that there's a green energy that people are sensing around the town with some folks that have sort of telekinetic sort of capabilities.
Yeah, it sort of manifests like green lightning in the sky at the end of every narrative. It sort of binds these characters
people's
together.
eyes glow a little bit, and at one stage there's a guy that wants to attack the Pedro Pascal character, and he's sort of just concentrating at him. You see his eyes glow a little bit, and then Pedro starts bleeding from the nose. So it's like just little moments like that through, but it does sort of reach this final story where all the characters more or less sort of come together as the sort of sci-fi-ish element takes a bit greater hold, but it still doesn't even take that greater hold. Like, it's still very grounded for the most part. Anyway, basically, this film's a bit weird. I really like it.
Yeah.
I think this is a real gem that nobody really knew. Like, I don't know how you saw this, Simon. I know it was a Sundance film. It got a small cinema release earlier this year in the US. Did it come out here?
No, it never came out here. I like what these two directors do, so when I noticed that this film was directed by them and it had Hanks, it had Mendo in it as well, and Pedro, I thought this has got to be worth a look. The 80s setting got me. I think I paid. That was an Apple purchase for me, US Apple. I think I paid for like $5 to watch this, and I'm glad.
So US Apple, it wasn't Australian Apple. You weren't able to get it locally.
It wasn't Australian Apple. No, it hasn't seen a release here.
Yeah, so really frustrating it hasn't gotten a release here, because this is the movie I think I'd like to be recommending to everybody this year.
I'm the same. I really dug it. It's really unusual in the way they pull it together. As you say, the Pulp Fiction, dare I say, the weapons story structure is really compelling and interesting. There's a lot of humour in it. The girls doing their rap battling and how they sort of take on the Too Short on stage is a terrific scene. There was nothing I didn't like about this film.
Yeah. And we talked about some of the big name actors, and I forgot to mention Mendo, but Mendo's there as a corruptish cop through the thing. But the actor the young actor that I think everyone should be paying attention to, and the thing that's going to get all the butts in seats, is a guy named Jack Champion. Now, Simon, you're right across Jack Champion, right?
Love the Champion. He's a champion, yeah. Jack Champion.
What's your favourite Jack Champion film?
Oh, boy, too many to mention off the top of my head. Why don't you give me one?
Look, so people may know him from Scream 6 from a couple of years ago, but obviously everybody who's listening to this podcast right now is, wait a sec, Jack Champion, are you talking about Spider from Avatar, The Way of Water? And yes, I am. He played Spider. He was the human friend of the
backbone.
kids.
He was the thematic and narrative backbone of the whole film.
Yeah, a bit concerned about Spider in the new film, because if you're watching the trailer, there's a scene that shows something that may be the death of Spider, but I think it's a bit of a misdirect.
They wouldn't bump off Champion. They'd have to keep Jack Champion in, wouldn't they?
Yeah, you got to keep the guy in, but it's
tickets.
Yeah. Anyway, look, I'm suddenly just on the Jack Champion Wikipedia, and it tells me that he did film portions of Avatar 4.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so it seems okay. So it's all going to be fine.
You think there'll be a 4 and a 5? There's some
of Avatar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some talk that may be under review.
Who's saying that? Are we talking about the fact that the first film made over $1 billion? Yeah. The second movie made more money. Why would they?
Well, Cameron's aging.
No, there was an interview he gave the other week where he was like, "Oh, I'm in my 70s, but I'm pretty fit. There's no reason why I don't think I can make the next two."
We'll see. I don't know if this next... I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't know if there's still the hunger for Avatar like there was.
Simon...
Why are you laughing at that?
Because did you pay attention to the discourse around Avatar since the release of the first film going into the second, where everyone's like, I don't think that the audience is really necessarily there for another Avatar film. And then the film gets released and it makes more money than the first one did.
Listen to you take your high ground on all things Avatar. Wow, okay, we'll see. Okay, fine. I'm sure. I hope I'm wrong, Dan. The whole New Zealand film industry and all the technicians that film clogs up for years at a time, and thereby breaking down the indigenous filmmaking culture of the country. I hope it's good for them.
Look, Simon, here's the thing. You're being a naysayer, but I'm going to put it out there. This is going to make just as much money as the last one did.
We'll see.
It's going to do just fine.
Save cinema. That's what it'll do.
It will save cinema. Anyway, Simon, let's move on and wrap this here podcast up, because I'm being interrupted by a little person.
Yes. Hello, little person. I was fortunate enough to see the first couple of episodes of the second season of Wednesday. You and I, in an Avatar kind of way, differ on all things Wednesday. I love it, you don't. I am entirely back on board with season 2. The first episode is directed in its entirety by one Timothy Burton, who seemed...
Oh, wow. What a coup. The guy that last made a good movie back in 1995.
He's coming off Beetlejuice. He clearly has a connection with Jenna Ortega.
Beetlejuice, a film I did not care for, as I recall.
Exactly right. Made a lot of money. He's been given a lot of creative freedom.
Actually, Simon...
Sorry,
I was listening to another podcast this morning.
Because of what I said about Avatar. Look at you. You're a firecracker right now.
Look, I was listening to another podcast this morning. I've been meaning to look this up, so I'm just going to do this now while we're here.
All right.
Beetlejuice launched a really big number for its opening weekend. Yep. But what I didn't realise was it had a massive drop-off straight afterwards.
Yeah, Fantastic Four style. I'm keen to see where Fantastic Four ends up as well. Yeah,
it was in context of talking about Fantastic Four. Yeah, so the box office all up, and look, this is nothing to sneeze at. Like, it still pulled through like 452 million. Yeah. Like, it did perfectly well. Yep. But it didn't have the legs on it, which they'd kind of expected from those sort of opening week or two.
Yeah. Well, Wednesday has legs, my friend. That's a bit weird.
Good morning.
You talking to your child there?
Yeah, sorry. Conversation about lollipops.
I'll go on with Wednesday. Oh, nice.
Yeah, please do.
He gets it all right. We even get to see a bit of that Tim Burton animated magic in this one, where he does a bit of his stop motion black and white stuff, which is still his best work. The fans are turning out for Wednesday. It's going to be huge. Netflix are having a big summer with Happy Gilmore. This is only going to add to it. And I'm glad it's back. Big Jenna Ortega fan. Big Emma Myers fan. She's wonderful and a great foil for all things Jenna does as Wednesday. Also in there, replacing the last season's principal is Steve Buscemi, as someone who, in a very Buscemi kind of way, clearly has nefarious plans afoot. So if you love the first season, I reckon you'll love, certainly after the first 2 episodes, you'll love the second season. What else have you been watching, Dan?
Simon, I'm just going to wrap up this here podcast, and I'm going to tell you about the thing I've actually been watching this week, which is, on top of a lot of King of the Hill, I've watched so much Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and look, there's a new season that's currently playing out. There's no reason necessarily to bring it up on this podcast other than, look, I'm just being authentic with people. This is what I've been watching. This was a show that I kind of half watched a little bit when the show kicked off, but I realized as I was doing the rewatch, I think I only watched maybe 1.5 episodes because I don't think I got very far in. It is hugely entertaining. This is, like, I think Star Trek has been fairly rote since... What year are we in now? 2025. When did Voyager finish? That was like maybe 2000-ish.
Oh, give or take, yeah.
Since then. And like even Voyager wasn't the strongest of Star Trek series, let's be real.
What was the one with Kate Mulgrew?
That was Voyager.
Oh, okay, well there you go. I know.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't strong.
No. But yeah, so look, I'm just having a blast with this one. I'm really enjoying this.
Anson Mount. I think that's a great name for an actor. He's the captain in Strange New Worlds, and I find him compelling to look at, and I enjoy saying his name.
Incredible hair.
Great hair. Oh, don't bring up hair. Why would you do that?
I wasn't attacking your hair. I was just talking up his hair. And on this here very podcast, or at least on this YouTube feed, I did interview Ethan Peck, who was the guy that plays Spock in the new TV series. Yes. It was a really good chat, and I've been thinking about that chat a lot in the last couple of weeks, only because it's like, hey, there's that guy that I spoke to once.
I'm trying to score a couple of other interviews with talent at the moment, because it's been a while since we've done a talent surge. With Oz Comic Con on at the moment, or coming up in the months ahead, we should try and score a few more talent. I'll see what
maybe. But until then, Simon, that sounds like a post-podcast conversation.
It does indeed.
Folks, this has been the Screen Watching Podcast. My name's Dan Barrett, joined by Simon Foster. Find me on the internet at Always Be Watching. It's a newsletter. It's a way of life. alwaysbewatching.com. It'll tell you all the stuff you need to know about TV and streaming in any given week. Simon, what are you up to? Tell people how they can stalk.
Well, I have got this Screen Space newsletter thing happening over at Substack, with much thanks to Dan Barrett, who sort of pointed me in this direction. It is going off. I'm getting subscribers. I'm getting feedback, conversation, comments from people I've not heard of in the past. So thank you, Dan Barrett, and thank you to those contributing my Screen Space newsletter. Please subscribe. It's over on the Substack. As for Screen Watching, you can follow us on @Screen Watching Podcast on the Facebook, on YouTube @Screen Watching, where you'll see more Screen Watching, where you'll see more interviews in the months ahead, and write us an email at screenwatchingpodcast@gmail.com. Time to go.
Indeed. This has been Screen Retching. We'll be back next week with more. We'll see you then.